The cadence was a persistent presence, a woman's voice reaching for something just out of reach, edged with desperation, whispering his name like a secret shared with the divine. It was punctuated by a steady, rhythmic impact against the wall we shared, a headboard, I knew, striking the plaster in perfect time with her gasp. I used to listen, a knot of curiosity tightening in my stomach, wondering what power he wielded to elicit such sounds. What did he do to them? Now, the wondering had ceased. Last night, I had the answer, imprinted on my skin, echoed in my bones. And the knowledge sat with me, if I desired it again. The threshold was thin, easily crossed with a simple gesture. It had begun as a low hum, a man's voice, deep and assured, a counterpoint to a woman's soft, breathy reply. I strained to decipher their words through the thin barrier, catching only the anticipation that shimmered in her tone. Then, the first moan, raw and sharp, completely uninhibited. The rhythm against the wall started slow, then built, accelerating with her cries, a fearless surrender to the moment. I lay still in my own space, breath held shallow, a strange heat coiling through me. This wasn't like the faint sounds of neighbors' lives I was used to, fleeting, forgettable moments. This was potent. And it recurred, night after night. Different voices, different women, but the same shattering, uncontrollable sounds of pleasure. I would turn onto my side, pressing my thighs together, my pulse erratic. I should have found a way to drown it out, but I didn't. I listened, and with every breathless sound that pierced the quiet, a single question burned brighter in my mind. What was he doing to them? And why did the thought of being the source of those sounds suddenly feel less like fear and more like an urgent craving? By day, he was a study in anonymity. Quiet, contained, blending into the background of our building's residence. But at night, when the sounds of abandon filled the air, he transformed into something else entirely. I'd only seen him a handful of times in the hallway, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with an effortless grace, perhaps late 40s, possessing a quiet authority that younger men often lacked. The women who visited never seemed to stay, but they always left looking subtly altered, their eyes holding a lingering intensity. I tried not to stare when our paths crossed near the mailboxes or by the stairwell, but my eyes absorbed every detail. The unhurried confidence in his stride, the low, deliberate cadence of his voice, each word measured. Most unsettling was the way he met your gaze, like he saw right through to your private thoughts. I told myself I wasn't fixated, but my own pulse betrayed me. Then one evening, rounding the corner from the laundry room, I nearly collided with him. Up close, he carried the clean, warm scent of expensive soap and something else, something grounded. He didn't step back. He simply held my gaze, a slow, knowing smile playing on his lips. The walls, the unspoken understanding hung heavy in the air. My breath hitched. He knew, his smile lingered, a silent acknowledgement, but he didn't wait for a response. He just continued on his way, his footsteps receding, slow and measured. I stood frozen, my keys digging into my palm, my heart hammering against my ribs. The walls. Two simple words, yet they felt like an unraveling. He knew. He had known for a while. I forced myself to exhale, trying to project an air of indifference, pretending my face wasn't hot with embarrassment and something else I couldn't name. But as I turned to fumble for my door lock, I caught it, a quick glance over his shoulder, the same slow smile, like he was waiting for me to speak, to confirm his suspicion. I didn't. I locked myself inside, leaning back against the door, my heart still racing. Listening was one thing. Being known to listen was another. Now, it was impossible to retreat. The next night, the familiar sounds began, but they felt different. Sharper, perhaps, or maybe my own hyper-awareness amplified them. The woman's cries sliced through the silence, breathy, desperate, on the verge of breaking. The steady impact against the plaster was relentless. I squeezed my legs taut. Ether, my breath shallow, a consuming heat swirling low in my abdomen. Was he always this potent, or was this performance somehow for me? I rolled onto my side, pressing my palm gently against the cool wall, my body humming with a restless energy. I pictured him just beyond, his body moving against hers, his voice a low rumble, saying things I couldn't quite distinguish. My hand drifted lower, almost involuntarily. Before I could stop myself, my legs parted, and a choked sound escaped my lips as my fingers moved in slow, deliberate circles, mirroring the rhythm echoing through the wall. It was terrifyingly easy to imagine, easy to pretend it was me, that his hands were on me, his voice whispering in my ear. The woman next door cried out, a sharp, final sound. I muffled my own answering moan against my wrist. The heat built rapidly, an unbearable pressure mounting. My body tensed, pleasure cresting and breaking over me in dizzying waves. I bit back a cry, trembling, breathless, the blood pounding in my ears. And yet, even as the tension eased, the potent ache within me remained, unsatisfied. I was done waiting. Tomorrow, I would bridge the gap. All the next day, anticipation vibrated beneath my skin. It wasn't nervousness. It was a honed readiness. Every distant door closing, every set of footsteps in the hallway, brought the thought, was it him? Was he thinking about me? Was he waiting for me to make a move, or did he already know I would? By the time evening fell, my pulse was steady, my course set. I stepped out into the hallway. He opened his door at the exact same moment. It felt less like chance and more like an aligning of paths. He paused, his gaze settling on me with a familiar amusement. Twice in 2 days, he murmured, a smile tugging at his lips, starting to think you're following me. I allowed my own lips to curve into a playful challenge. Would that be a problem? His smile deepened. Depends entirely on your intentions. I tilted my head, holding his gaze. I was thinking, I said, my voice level, since we're neighbors, perhaps dinner sometime? Get to know each other properly. A beat of silence stretched between us. Not hesitation, but calculation. He was assessing me, weighing my words, gauging if I understood the unspoken invitation layered within my simple suggestion. Then, a slow nod. My place, tomorrow. It wasn't a question. It was a confident statement of fact. A spark shot through me, a warmth pooling low in my gut. Sounds perfect, I replied, a genuine smile touching my face. I turned first, walking away without looking back, but I didn't need to. I could feel his eyes on me until I reached my own door. Tomorrow, his door was slightly ajar when I arrived the next evening, a silent invitation, confirmation that he'd been waiting. He stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, watching me approach with that same unreadable smile, like he knew exactly why I was there, like he'd known all along. Right on time, he said, stepping aside to allow me entry. The apartment was exactly as I might have imagined, minimalist, clean, devoid of unnecessary clutter. It felt deliberate, like the space of a man who allowed nothing into his life unless it served a purpose. The air held the rich scent of something expertly prepared. Steak, perhaps. The thought crossed my mind. A man who knew how to nourish a woman before he consumed her. You cook? I teased, stepping past him. I prefer control over what I consume, he replied, his voice smooth, deliberate. Don't you? My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. Not yet. I took a seat at the small dining table, crossing my legs slowly, watching as he poured the wine. He moved with an unhurried precision, completely in command of the moment. So, he said, setting a glass before me, his eyes holding mine, are you always this, curious about your neighbors? I traced the rim of the glass with my finger, tilting my head slightly. Only the ones worth being curious about. His lips twitched with amusement. And what, specifically, caught your attention? I took a slow sip of the wine, meeting his gaze over the rim. The way you make women sound. For the first time, his stillness fractured, just for a fraction of a second. His gaze darkened, the amusement in his smile sharpening into something far more potent, more dangerous. And how do I make them sound? The question hung unspoken between us. Ruined. Worshipped. Completely undone. I didn't voice the thoughts. I simply smiled, a quiet chuckle escaped him, and he swirled the wine in his glass. Good to know my reputation precedes me. I hummed, taking another sip. Hard not to notice, there was no need for small talk after that. The air between us was already thick with unspoken understanding, with raw anticipation. He ate slowly, his gaze flicking to me between bites, as if measuring my restraint, seeing how long I could maintain the careful composure. I met his silent challenge, making him wait, making him earn the next move. But when I finished my last sip of wine and set the glass down, he stood. "Come here." 2 words. Not a request. A command. Heat surged through me as I rose from the table, my heart hammering against my ribs as he took my hand and led me towards the bedroom. I didn't hesitate. There was no part of me that wanted to. The bedroom was softly lit, the subtle scent of his cologne clinging to the air. Everything in the space felt intentional, controlled, just like him. He closed the door behind me with a slow, almost languid movement, but the look in his eyes held nothing back. He watched me, like he knew exactly what was about to unfold. I barely had time to register the intensity of his gaze before he moved. One moment I was standing there, anticipation tightening every muscle. The next, his hands were on me, firm, steady, utterly decisive. He guided me backward, his grip a silent instruction, his touch confident and unhurried. He wasn't just leading me, he was claiming me. When the backs of my knees met the edge of the bed, he didn't push. He paused, standing before me, his gaze unwavering, waiting for my decision on how this would begin. I sat down first. That was all the permission he required. His mouth met mine in an instant, not hesitant, not testing, but taking. The kiss was deep, slow, a deliberate dismantling of my composure. He didn't rush. He drew out every second, ensuring I felt the weight of his control without needing words. His hands slid lower, settling on my hips, guiding me back onto the mattress, his weight pressing me down, anchoring me, solid and grounded. My body was already burning, restless with need, but he seemed in no hurry. He wanted me to ache. His lips trailed a path of fire down my neck, his stubble a delicious friction against my skin. Every kiss, every brush of his mouth, was precise, like he was mapping my landscape, learning exactly where to linger, exactly how to make me yield. Then, with an effortless strength, he shifted me. One moment I was beneath him, the next, I was on my stomach, his hands gripping my hips, lifting me just enough to arch my back. "Stay there," he murmured, his voice a low current of authority. Heat surged through me, my breath catching as his hands skimmed down my spine, slow, a tantalizing tease. He wasn't merely touching me, he was dictating my very posture. His grip was firm, unyielding but measured, adjusting my position with a kind of expert knowing that made my head spin. When he finally moved against me, the first stroke stole the air from my lungs, his grip tightened, fingers digging into my waist, as he established the rhythm. Slow, initially, agonizingly slow, forcing my nails to curl into the sheets. But then, just as I felt I could adjust, he shifted. A subtle change in angle, a recalibration of his grip, the way he controlled my movements, and suddenly it wasn't just intense, it was devastating. Each movement drove me deeper into pure sensation, his control absolute. He knew exactly when to draw back, exactly when to surge forward, exactly when to push me to the brink and make me crave the fall. A moan escaped me before I could suppress it. "That's it," he murmured, his voice rough with satisfaction. "Let me hear you." He moved again, a subtle shift in depth, and my body shattered. I gasped, fingers clutching the sheets, my back arching as pleasure ripped through me, not gentle, but a sharp, relentless wave. He felt my body tighten around him, felt the desperate clench, the trembling of my legs. But he wasn't finished. I barely had time to gather my scattered senses before he turned me again, spreading my thighs with the practiced ease of a man who wouldn't stop until he had wrung every last drop of sensation from me. Now, he wanted to watch. He hovered above me, his hands capturing my wrists, pinning them gently beside my head, not trapping, but holding me precisely where he wanted me. His gaze swept over me, studying every flicker of expression, every breathless sound. And then he moved again, slow, deliberate, completely in command. I felt my body coiling tighter, the pressure building too quickly, too intensely. His pace never faltered, his grip never loosened. He was relentless, his control absolute, chasing my next release. He was watching me come undone beneath him, and he wouldn't stop until I gave him everything. When the second wave hit, it was blinding. My breath broke, my body tensed, my head falling back as pleasure tore through me, leaving me trembling and vulnerable. I had never been touched like this. I had never been taken apart and reassembled so completely. By the time he reached his own peak, that perfect control fractured just enough for me to glimpse the raw force beneath. His groan was deep, guttural, his fingers tightening around my wrists one last time as he finally allowed himself release. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The only sounds were our heavy, uneven breathing. His fingers traced a slow, almost lazy path down my arm, as if memorizing the aftermath etched onto my skin. I was still trembling, still acutely sensitive, my body thoroughly spent. I had never felt this wrecked, this utterly consumed. Then, finally, a low, satisfied chuckle rumbled from his chest. "You were curious," he murmured, his lips brushing against my ear. "Was it everything you imagined?" I exhaled, a slow, shaky breath, my body completely spent, utterly satisfied. A small, contented smile curved my lips. Better, one night should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The next night, I heard it again, the same rhythm, the same raw cries, the same potent pleasure bleeding through the walls. But this time, the sounds didn't leave me restless. They didn't ignite that aching blend of curiosity and frustration. Because now, I knew. I had felt it myself. I had been one of them. And I could be again. Whenever I wanted. All it would take was a simple signal. I lay in my bed, the lingering scent of him a soft memory on my sheets, my skin still humming with a deep, undeniable satisfaction. My body ached, not from exhaustion, but from a profound sense of fulfillment. And yet, even then, I was already anticipating the next time. I turned onto my side, pressing my palm flat against the wall. The rhythm from next door was steady, unrelenting. I could picture it perfectly now, the way he moved, the way he commanded every moment, the way he could shatter a woman and leave her feeling more complete than before. The woman on the other side gasped, her voice raw, desperate. I smiled to myself. That had been me last night. And tomorrow night, it could be me again. I didn't have to wonder anymore. I belonged to that world now. All I had to do was knock.